I was halfway through setting up my tent when the alert hit my phone. No vibration, no soft ping. It screamed. That shrill government alarm tone, the kind that makes your stomach drop before you even read the words. My phone lit up in my jacket pocket, and I snatched it out instinctively, expecting weather, maybe avalanche risk. But there was no sender. No government agency, no app tag. Just a full-screen message in red text on a white background. Do not respond. Do not move. Wait. No context. No location. No timestamp. And when I tried to screenshot it, the screen went black. Then my home screen reappeared like nothing had happened. I stood there frozen, one knee on the forest floor, my tent half sipped. A part of me thought. I imagined it. But the chill in my chest told me I hadn't. I was alone. At least, I thought I was. Deep in the Trøndelag region of central Norway, surrounded by nothing but trees and the occasional sound of wind through the branches. I'd chosen this place because it was remote and off-grid. I'd researched it carefully. Wild camping was allowed. Signal was weak. I wanted space from people, my ex, and the slow-motion car crash that was my job back in Oslo. But this alert wasn't something you could ignore. Not because of what it said, but because it had no business being there at all. I checked my notification history, nothing. No sign it was ever received. I checked my apps, emergency broadcasts, even turned airplane mode on and off. Signal, 0 bars. I told myself it was a glitch, a cached test, some weird overlapping signal from an old civil alert system. I laughed, but it didn't reach my chest. I stood slowly. The forest felt too still, like it had paused to listen. 10 seconds passed. Then 20 dot, and then, from somewhere behind, not close, but not far, came a dry crunch. One footstep. Not wildlife. Not random. Measured. Like someone putting pressure on a single patch of forest floor. I didn't turn around. Not because I was brave. Because I remembered the message. Do not move. Wait. So I waited, and whatever was behind me did the same. I told myself it had to be a glitch, some system quirk, maybe a stray frequency or emergency broadcast caught in a weird loop. Norway's rural infrastructure was patchy in places, and it wasn't unheard of for old alerts to suddenly trigger again. I'd heard of it happening before. That's what I told myself. Again and again. I even spoke out loud. Just a technical bug. But the words came out hollow. My phone showed no trace of the message. No screenshot. No app history. Nothing in my notifications, emergency alert settings, or background data. As if the message had never existed. I even turned the phone off and back on, just to feel like I was in control of something. Still nothing. I kept glancing over my shoulder as I finished setting up camp. That single crunch behind me earlier, it could have been anything. A tree. Limb. Maybe a fox. I never turned around to check, which in hindsight still unsettles me. It wasn't fear that stopped me. It was obedience. I didn't want to admit that at the time, but it was true. I followed the instruction like it was law. Like it knew something I didn't. That night I made a fire, boiled some noodles, and tried to lose myself in the small rituals. I poured hot water over my dehydrated meal, listened to the hiss of my stove, and kept my eyes away from the trees. The forest had grown darker quicker than usual, and though I had a headlamp, I avoided shining it too far from my sight. The beam of artificial light felt like it might provoke something, invite attention. I crawled into my tent around 10, zipped up the front, and slid into my sleeping bag. I left my boots by the flap and kept my phone on airplane mode to conserve battery. As I lay there, I tried not to think about the silence, how total it was. No birds. No bugs. Just the distant rush of the wind somewhere high above the canopy. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Not fast. Not light. Just one at first, then a pause, then another. They were spaced out too deliberate to be an animal. I held my breath. Another step. Crunch. Another. Crunch. Always the same pressure, the same distance. As if whoever, whatever it was, had never learned to walk naturally. It was like it was mimicking what footsteps should sound like, but didn't quite understand the timing. I reached slowly for my phone, turned it on, and checked the time. 2:13 a.m., no messages, no alerts, but I didn't open the tent. I didn't shine a light. I didn't even breathe too loud. I just stared at the thin fabric of the tent ceiling and waited. The steps circled once, then stopped. Then came that sound, the breathing. Not harsh, not raspy, but wrong. Like someone was breathing through their mouth with no emotion, no change in rhythm, no effort. In and out. Not quite animal, not quite human. I lay frozen for over an hour. When I woke up, it was dawn, and outside the tent, just beside my boots, was a single narrow handprint pressed into the dirt. Fingers long, thumb missing. No prints, just smooth skin, like whatever left it didn't have pores. Or didn't need them. I didn't sleep after that. Even when the sound stopped and the breathing faded into nothing, I couldn't close my eyes. My body refused. My heart was still pounding, my ears ringing with the silence it left behind. I laid there until dawn, every muscle locked, waiting for something to come back, to breathe again, to press its face against the tent. But nothing came. Only the growing light outside convinced me it was finally okay to unzip the flap. The handprint was still there, untouched, sharp edges, a strange, diagonal angle like it had been placed with focus, not stumbled into. I stared at it too long, I think. I kept trying to measure it with my own hand, held mine over it, noted how the proportions were almost right, almost. Except the fingers were longer, thinner, and there was no thumb at all. I packed quickly. I didn't eat. I didn't speak aloud. Even as I rolled up the tent, my mind was trying to catch up with what had happened. But there was no real logic, no explanation that fit inside anything I knew. I couldn't rationalize the message, or the handprint, or why every part of me felt like I was being watched. Even now, even in the safety of daylight, I turned on my phone to check for reception. Still nothing. Not even an emergency signal. No bars. I switched it off again to save battery and pulled out my compass. I knew the direction I had come from. The trailhead marked near the logging road. I pointed my boots southeast and started moving. I hadn't gone more than an hour when my phone lit up again on its own dot. No unlock screen. No app dot, just a full white screen. Stay low. They are near. I stopped. My mouth went dry. There was no notification sound this time, just a silent message flashing on and off, like a glitching warning light. I scanned the trees. Nothing. I listened. Only wind. But I could feel something like a pressure in the back of my mind. A presence I couldn't see, couldn't hear, but knew was close. I crouched instinctively, half hidden behind a slope of moss and roots, my breath shallow. The forest around me was still too still. No birds, no insects, not even the rustle of small animals. The absence wasn't peaceful, it was calculated. I stayed crouched for 10 full minutes, not daring to rise. Eventually, the message disappeared on its own. No sound. Just gone. I stood up slowly, checked my compass again. The needle spun slowly, then wavered to a stop pointing west this time. Not southeast. Not where I'd come from. I pulled out my phone again, opened my GPS dot, nothing loaded. Just a blank grid and the words, location not available. I knew that area wasn't dead for signal. Even out here, even this deep, I should have had a basic lock on my location. I checked my battery. 83%. It wasn't the signal that was broken. It was the system. I turned back the way I thought I came, but even the trees looked unfamiliar now. I recognized none of the stumps, none of the twisted roots I'd climbed earlier. Everything felt wrong, off by just enough to unsettle. As if the forest had subtly changed its skin overnight. Then came the sound again. Not footsteps this time, something softer. A drag. Like something being pulled slowly through the underbrush. Too wide to walk, too smooth to be animal. It stopped when I did, moved again when I took a step. I spun around, nothing. Then my phone vibrated again. Another alert. Do not look up. And of course, the second I read it, I looked. Something was there high between the trees. Tall. Thin. Not hanging. Not perched. Just there. Still, no features. No face. Just a shape. Watching and then, even worse, I realized it wasn't in the trees. It was between them. Not walking. Not standing. Just held there, suspended, like it existed in a space that didn't belong. I turned and ran. No trail. No compass. No map. Just instinct and desperation. And behind me, nothing chased. But it didn't need to. It already knew where I was going. I don't know how long I ran. There's something about panic that bends time. The trees blurred around me, my lungs. Burned, my boots hit root after root, but I didn't stop. Not until my knees gave out and I collapsed against a slanted tree, chest heaving, hands trembling too much to even unzip my coat. The only thing louder than my heartbeat was the silence, because it was still there. Not behind me. Not following. But present. Like the woods themselves had grown aware of me. I checked my phone again. Nothing. Then, as if it had been waiting for me to settle, it lit up. Turn left. Do not climb. That was all. Just white letters on a black background. No sender. No time stone. And as usual, no trace once I backed out of the screen. I looked left. It wasn't a path. Not even close. Overgrown shrubs, dense underbrush, thorns, and old stumps blocked the way. To the right, however, a narrow incline led uphill toward a rocky clearing. More light, more visibility, and far easier to traverse. Every instinct I had screamed to go. Right. Height means safety, vision, distance. But the phone said left. I hesitated for a full minute. I even took a step toward the incline, thinking maybe I'd follow my gut for once. But something inside me tightened, like an invisible thread, being pulled from the pit of my stomach. I looked back at the overgrown mess on the left again, and I took the first step in. The brush clawed at my legs. The ground was soft, uneven, and I nearly twisted my ankle twice pushing through the mess of growth. After about 30 meters, I stopped to catch my breath. That's when I looked back and saw it not moving, not breathing, just there in the exact spot where I almost went right. On the edge of the incline, half shaded by trees, stood a figure tall, thin, skin pale like stretched paper. Its arms too long, reaching past the knees. No clothes, no details, no motion, just stillness. Its face, if it had one, was shadowed, and it stood with its head slightly tilted, like a dog listening. It hadn't been there before. It hadn't followed me. It had been waiting. I dropped down behind a fallen log, heart racing, breath shallow. I peeked once more. Still there. It hadn't moved, not even an inch. I didn't scream. I didn't speak. I only stared until my phone buzzed again. Good. Stay low. I nearly dropped it. I turned away from the clearing, crawling further into the brush until I couldn't see the incline anymore. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what would have happened if I had climbed that slope. But I knew without any doubt that it had been waiting for me to make the wrong choice. From that moment on, I followed every message. No questions. No hesitation. The phone buzzed again not long after. I didn't even wait to read it before adjusting course. Walk. 20 meters. Then stop. I obeyed. It led me through terrain that made no sense circling back on itself, leading between tree clusters so dense I had to turn sideways to pass. Once it told me to close my eyes, just for 10 seconds, and I did it, because whatever this thing was, whatever. Force was sending me these alerts. It knew more than I did. It was trying to keep me alive, or at least, that's what I hoped. I don't know how long I followed the instructions, maybe hours, maybe more. My sense of time was gone, like the forest had swallowed it along with everything else. The sun was still hidden behind the trees, low and gray. My legs ached. Every step felt like I was walking deeper into something I wasn't supposed to be part of. But the phone kept guiding me, and I listened like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. That's when I saw it, a narrow dip in the earth ahead. Almost. Like an old trail that had long since been forgotten. Roots had grown over it, ferns spilling into its path, but it was definitely man-made once. Carefully, I stepped into it. For the first time since that first alert, it felt like I was somewhere someone else had been. And then I saw the backpack, torn, weathered, half buried in mud and moss. A faded logo barely visible on the back. I stopped and crouched down, reaching slowly like it might bite me. The zipper was stuck, but I forced it open. Inside, scraps of clothing matted with dirt, an empty water bottle, a rusted multi-tool, and at the bottom, a phone, cracked screen. No power. I stood there, just staring at it. I didn't want to believe what it implied, but I had to know. I took my power bank from my jacket, plugged the cable into the dead phone, and waited. The screen blinked once, then again it booted, and there it was. The same layout, the same emergency alert tone built into the phone's history, and most importantly, the same messages. Do not respond. Do not move. Wait. Stay low. They are near. Turn left. Do not climb. But then, different ones too. Variations I hadn't seen. Follow the light. Speak to it if you see her. Look into the trees. Conflicting. Some of them directly opposed what I'd been told. And that's when my blood ran cold. I realized not all of these alerts were from the same sender. Some weren't warnings. They were traps. There had been more than one voice. More than one intention behind the alerts. Something was imitating the messages, copying the tone, the structure. The same way the footsteps had sounded almost human. The same way that breathing outside my tent had been almost normal. It wasn't trying to help me. It was trying to earn my trust. And someone else. Whoever had carried this pack had followed the wrong ones. I opened the camera roll on the cracked phone. There were photos. Not many. Mostly trees, trail markers, a selfie of a man in his late 30s with a pack and a smile. Then the last photo, blurry, night, the trees lit faintly by flash. And in the far right corner, something white. A sliver of pale, stretched skin, the start of a face. Or something pretending to have one. I turned off the phone, put it back in the pack, and stood. I wanted to run again. But I knew now running wasn't how you survived this place. Listening was my phone buzzed. You found him. Keep going. I didn't know what disturbed me more, the fact that it knew what I'd seen, or the fact that it called the man him. Past tense. I kept walking, though every step felt like I was moving closer to something I shouldn't be. The forest had changed again. Not in the way it looked, but in how it felt. There was a weight in the air, like everything was holding its breath. I followed the uneven trail, now barely more than a depression in the soil, and I stopped looking around. I didn't want to see what might be watching me from the edges. The messages on my phone came slower now, less frequent. I didn't know if that meant I was safer, or if whatever was helping me had lost its signal or worse, its interest. But I kept going, clutching that device like it was my last connection to something sane. Then, Without warning, it buzzed again. "Do not look at I." That's all it said. No sound, just the text flashing on the screen. I didn't know what it was this time. Not exactly. But the dread in my chest returned like a fist tightening around my heart. I froze, crouching low, trying not to breathe too loud. I scanned the path ahead with just my eyes, slowly, carefully. And that's when I saw a dot between the trees. Not far from where I was headed stood a figure, not moving, not shifting weight or twitching like a human would. Just there. Its limbs were too long, its posture too rigid, like someone trying to remember how to be a person. Pale skin, almost gray in the dim light. Its face was turned away, or maybe it didn't have a face at all. I didn't want to find out. I ducked down, slid off the path, crawling slowly through damp leaves and roots until the shape was out of sight. I didn't dare stand upright again. I crawled like that for nearly 20 minutes until my palms bled from sharp sticks and my knees ached from the cold earth. Every muscle burned, but I didn't care. And just when I thought I was in the clear, my phone buzzed again. "You already saw Ita. Run." I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I just ran. I didn't know what I was running from or to. But something behind me moved too fast and silent, like wind bending the trees without sound. I didn't look. I remembered the rule. Don't look at it. The forest blurred. Branches cut my face. My legs screamed, but I didn't stop. Not even when I tripped and fell hard, slamming my shoulder into a tree trunk. I scrambled up and kept going. Ahead, I saw something metal. A tower. A rusted structure rising above the tree line. An old radio tower, probably abandoned. I veered toward it with everything I had left. The phone buzzed again. Final warning. Get to high ground. Do not listen to the voice. I didn't stop running until I reached the base of the tower. Its ladder had partially collapsed, but a platform halfway up looked accessible. I climbed, hands slipping on cold. Metal, nails tearing, blood mixing with rust. I pulled myself into the platform and collapsed. That's when I heard her voice. Soft, familiar, calling my name. My sister. She died 5 years ago. Tom. It's me. Please, I'm cold. I need help. It was so perfect. Her voice, her inflection. But I knew it wasn't her. It couldn't be. I bit down on my fist until it bled just to keep from answering. Below me. The forest stayed silent. And then I saw the shape again at the base of the tower. Motionless. Waiting. It knew where I was, but it couldn't climb. Not yet. I curled into myself on that rusted platform, shivering not from cold, but from fear that had settled somewhere deeper than my skin. My sister's voice, that voice echoed softly through the trees. Sometimes close, sometimes far. Always gentle, always pleading, and always wrong. Tom. Please. You left me there. Don't you remember? I pressed my hands over my ears, dug my nails into my scalp. That voice was dead. I knew it. I had been at her funeral. I had seen her body. I'd helped carry the casket. That voice wasn't her, but it didn't stop. It whispered through the trees like smoke slipping through cracks. It didn't call with rage or scream with violence. It was soft, loving. It used comfort as a weapon. Tom, come down. It's safe now. I almost did. God help me. I almost did. For a second, I forgot why I was up there at all. It felt like waking from a dream and not remembering the beginning. But then I felt the phone buzz again in my pocket, short and sharp. I pulled it out with shaking fingers. Ignore her. She is not yours. The message didn't explain. It didn't try to convince. Just commanded. And something about its certainty, its authority, snapped me back. I didn't move from that spot for hours. The voice faded eventually, slipping into long silences, only to return again as someone else. First my sister, then my old coach, then even my mother, long lost to dementia. The thing below couldn't climb, couldn't reach, but it could still speak. Dawn took forever to arrive. But when it did, I knew it was real, not just light, but the sound of the world returning. Birds again, wind, a squirrel darting through branches. The voice was gone. The stillness had broken. I climbed down slowly, knees trembling, muscles sore from clenching. The tower's rusted base groaned beneath me as I touched down, and for the first time in what felt like days, I stood on solid ground without panic vibrating in my bones. There was nothing waiting for me. No figure, no whisper. Just the forest, changed but breathing again. I didn't wait. I moved. One foot in front of the other, no longer relying on direction, just on distance. 2 hours later, I found a dirt road. Not paved, not marked, but real. A logging trail, maybe. And after another mile, a vehicle. A small maintenance truck parked crookedly by a ditch. No driver, no keys, but it had a radio. I tried to use it, stammering in Norwegian, barely coherent. It crackled back with static, then a man's voice calm, confused. I gave my coordinates as best I could. He told me to stay put. Help would come. And it did. When they found me, I told them I'd gotten lost, that I'd followed the wrong trail, got turned around. I didn't mention the alerts. I didn't mention the voice. I sure as hell didn't mention the thing in the woods that wore the faces of people I'd loved. They gave me water, a blanket, a ride back to the nearest town. I thanked them. I smiled when I was supposed to, but I didn't turn my phone back on. I was afraid of what else it might tell me. They ran blood work, took vitals, asked if I'd eaten something strange, berries, maybe mushrooms. I told them no. I kept my story short, got lost, panicked, hallucinated maybe. One of the medics said I was lucky to be alive. People disappear in those woods all the time, he added. Tourists mostly, hikers without maps. It happens, he said, handing me a plastic cup of orange juice, like that could wash the thing off me. They let me go that same afternoon. No police report, no official questions, just a warning not to wander off alone again. I nodded, kept quiet, and took the first train back to Oslo. I didn't unpack when I got home. I dropped my bag by the door, left my boots where they fell, and went straight into the shower. I stayed there until the water ran cold and still didn't feel clean. That night, I didn't sleep. The apartment was too quiet. Every creak in the walls made my body flinch. I kept checking my windows, the hallway mirror, the corners of every room. And of course, I kept checking my phone. Nothing. No alerts. Number. Messages. No sign of what had happened. I contacted a tech-savvy friend from university, someone who works in cybersecurity. Told him I'd been in a remote area and received strange emergency notifications. I asked him to dig into my phone's logs. He ran diagnostics, checked for malware, cross-referenced old alert systems, even pulled raw metadata. He found nothing. No trace. No deleted messages. No system anomalies. As far as my phone was concerned, those messages never existed. You sure? You didn't dream this? He asked. I didn't answer. He sent me a long list of excuses, phantom notifications, corrupted files, rare bugs that sometimes happen in older OS builds. I nodded along, but none of them explained how the messages had known what was around me before I did. None of them explained the figure, or the handprint, or the voice. For weeks, I tried to forget. I turned the phone off, started leaving it in another room when I slept. Eventually, I even considered getting rid of it entirely. It didn't matter. The memories didn't need reminders. They clung like wet cloth to my brain. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, hearing footsteps beside the bed that weren't there when I turned on the light. I'd see shapes in the mirror that weren't mine. Then, one night, about a month after I came back, the phone turned itself on. I hadn't touched it in days. I'd left it powered off in my desk drawer. But I heard the vibration just once coming from the dark. I pulled it out. The screen lit up with that same blank interface. I thought I'd escaped. You survived. For now, no option to respond. No sender. Just that. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there staring at it until the screen faded to black again. Then I walked to the balcony, took the phone in both hands, and dropped it as hard as I could onto the pavement below. It shattered. I told myself that was the end. It WSN single quotes T. Now. Sometimes when I pass by mirrors, I catch a glimpse of something. In the reflection, something just a little too still, too tall, standing in places it shouldn't be. Never when I turn. Only when I'm not looking directly at it. I still hear voice some nights. Not words anymore. Just the rhythm of breathing. Stop trying to explain what happened to anyone. It doesn't make sense on paper. It barely makes sense to me. But I've come to a quiet conclusion. The messages, whatever they were, weren't glitches. And they weren't sent by anyone I could ever trace. They were warnings from something that didn't want to be known. But didn't want me taken either. I still don't know who or what was trying to help me. But I'm starting to think whatever sent the alerts was never human to begin with.